Bonjour, hello everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Cashew Podcast. A few weeks back, I had the honor of chatting with Armanda and John of MyVoice of Ampersand Families here in Minnesota. During our conversation, Armanda and John share really important truths related to their experiences in foster care and their lives beyond the system. Just a heads up that there is mention of self-harm, abuse, and placement disruption in this episode. I am always a believer in listening to and empowering the voices of young people. I believe that is especially true right now. Young people are leading, pushing for change, and demanding justice. Hear them, and please be well. Well, thank you everyone for tuning into the Cashew Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Armanda and John of the MyVoice Youth Leaders. Hi, Armanda and John. Can you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm John. I'm 17, and I was in foster care for about 4 years. And I had some good and bad experiences in it, so.
Hi, Karina. I'm Armanda. I'm 22 years old. I'm a full-time college student pursuing a degree in social work with minors in gerontology and human relations. I've been a MyVoice youth leader since it started about 2 years ago, and I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. I'm so excited to talk to you both today and to just learn more about you and for our listeners to learn more about you and to hear more about MyVoice. Let's just start with what have you been up to the past couple of months? We have been in navigating pandemic life and in Minnesota have been, living through stay-at-home orders and now stay-safe orders, and just wondering what you've been up to, if there are any activities you're enjoying or techniques that you're using that have been helpful in just kind of navigating this time.
I know personally, I've been trying to get out into nature, going on walks around the lake, trying to stay connected with family through Zoom and what have you. What's really helped is the MyVoice group. I enjoy coming up with the itinerary for what we're going to do for the week and just having that community to stand with.
For me, I've been spending a lot of time kind of with myself, with my own thoughts. I've been journaling a lot recently, painting, spending time with my cat. I don't do a lot of the MyVoice meets, but last week we made brownies all together, it was a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to this coming weeks. But yeah, I've just been trying to figure some stuff out personally, work on things on school, and just kind of keep motivated, even though it feels like life is kind of all up in the air right now.
Absolutely. And you both mentioned, you're navigating school and distance learning. And so, John, for 17, are you still in high school?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm a junior.
Okay, junior. And then you're navigating college life. How has that been for you, that shift to distance learning and everything that comes with that? Maybe not seeing your peers as much or your friends. I know there are many dynamics that come to play. I don't know if you want to share a little bit of what that's been like for you.
I mean, for me personally, online school has been a lot easier for me because I'm such a person who likes to look around at other students and what they're doing. And so it's definitely been easier to stay motivated and stay focused on my schoolwork. But I'm also such just a person who loves to be with their friends. So the social distance and the stay safe and stay home orders have definitely been hard because my friends are honestly such one of the biggest support systems for me in my mental health and my motivation. But we've just been, Zooming and FaceTiming and texting all the time. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else to add, Amanda, or your experiences on that.
Yeah, definitely with college, it's kind of up in the air about funding, We got the CARES Act, the stimulus check, that whole thing going on. But also for me personally, having half of the semester online was easier. I didn't have to commute as much, but on the social aspect, it was hard. We had a bunch of research, group research papers and group projects, which we sort of had to learn how to navigate that online, which is tricky, but learning new skills.
Yep, adjusting and adapting, I bet. Well, and you both mentioned how important MyVoice has been for you both. Could you share a little bit about, with our listeners who maybe are not as familiar with what MyVoice is? You know, like, what is it? What do you all do? Kind of like, what do you get from it? You know, like, what does that mean to be a part of it for each of you?
Yeah, so to begin, MyVoice stands for Minnesota Youth Voices. It's a group for youth that have been impacted by the Minnesota foster care system, which we focus on connection, education, and change. And by doing so, we host different social events, we facilitate leadership councils, we attend panel presentations where we talk at colleges or what have you. We make different media, participate in advocacy work. We were a part of Foster Care Youth Day on the Hill, and we also do peer coaching as well. And this program is open to any youth that's impacted by the system, ages 12 to 24. And if you're interested, we also have a website if you want to check it out at www.myvoicemn.org. And MyVoice, to me, it's a space where youth can come together to have this sort of community where we have an underlying understanding of one another, of a situation that's bizarre, but yet so similar in different aspects. I personally find it important for people to find their voice, use their voice, advocate, just make the world better around them.
Going off what Armando said of it being just like a good place, it's definitely for me just a safe place, and it's so nice to finally know that there are so many other kids out there who are affected by foster care and just that the system in a whole. And especially if you don't know that and you're in the system, you can feel so alone and very targeted and very put down by everything. So if you are interested, please go to the website, like Armando mentioned, and come say hello.
I know you both would like to share your stories and a little bit more about your experience navigating the foster care system and what that experience has meant for you. So yeah, if you would be willing to share, you know, whatever it is you're comfortable with sharing to our listeners about kind of your own personal journey and navigating the child welfare system.
Well, for me, I was originally put into the system when I was very young, and I was taken out of the system by my aunt. So I lived with her for a couple years of my life, and I was reconnected with my biological family for a while, but it wasn't a good fit, and it became very toxic very fast, to the point that I had to move back in with my aunt. But upon that and going home to her and her new husband and all that stuff, really became detrimental to my mental health, and I didn't know where I fit and I didn't know who I was, to the point that I had started to self-harm, to the point I had to be put into a mental hospital. And once I was taken out, I was put back into the foster care system, and I stayed in there for 4 more years until I was yet again placed into a group home, until I met my forever home as of 4 years now, at age 13.
Yeah. And a little bit about my story. So I went into the system when I was 5, and I luckily was able to go in with my biological younger brother. We went to about 3 different foster homes together, and then we were adopted by an abusive family when I was 10, and I took that family to court when I was 15, and they still have my brother. But I went, it took 3 years in court, and he finally pled guilty, but by the end of that, so I was in foster care again from 15 to 17, and then I was adopted by my now forever family for about 5 years now. And yeah, going through the system, I hadn't really met other foster youth, and I've heard the statistics, I've heard the numbers, but I hadn't connected with anyone else in the system. So that's why MyVoice is also that prominent to me as well, because it just shows that you're not alone.
Going with Armando, like, hearing the statistics and the numbers and the awful things that are said about kids in the foster care system, one, it just kind of makes you feel even more alone. And when I was in foster care and jumping around, it was always in small towns. I am originally from a very, very small town called Elgin. It's down by Rochester in Wabasha County, and it was really hard because I knew that there were other kids out there, but I'd never heard or seen or talked to one of them. So, I mean, you do feel alone, but I promise you are not.
And going off of that, even, like, I went to 3 different elementary schools, 4 different high schools, and I never seemed to have, like, met any other foster youth. I've met a few people here and there that have been adopted, but it was never like I could find that connection.
I think also, like you said, going from school to school and, like, always having that fear of being, like, kind of, I'm moving tomorrow, or showing up home and your social worker is there, or your placement worker. That has happened to me before. I had a completely normal day at school, and I had come home, and my foster parents, like, you're moving, you're leaving. So I definitely think it in more of feeling alone, you feel like you can't make friends, that you really aren't normal, that you don't get to have friends. And that also was very detrimental to mental health, of feeling like you can't reach out, you can't make connections, because in the end, nothing really lasts in the eyes of a foster child.
Thank you both for sharing that and sharing your very personal stories and experience, and also just like what that has meant for you to make these connections with your peers, and to be able to, unfortunately it was later, in your lives where you're able to do that, but that you found a space that feels safe and that feels, relatable and comfortable, and where you're able to access your inner power and advocacy and organizing, and many cool ways of sharing your voices on different platforms. And, thinking for folks who are listening, who may be other youth currently in care and navigating the system, or frontline professionals who are supporting youth who are still in care, or other caregivers, adults, when you're thinking back to those moments where, you're experiencing these challenges and these ups and downs, and sometimes very painful and traumatic experiences in the system, and, struggling to connect with your peers who maybe didn't understand your experience, like you're saying at schools, or you're moving a lot, and you weren't having an always like safe and comfortable family in the homes that you were in. Were there people that you were able to connect with, or even if it wasn't like a person, were there things that were really essential for you and kind of in those tough moments, and helping ground yourself, or kind of maintaining hope and kind of pushing forward, and helping like you're going to get through this?
For me, it was one, my grandmother, who's always just been a huge support for me, but also my social worker and my adoption worker were always a very big part of me staying okay and stable, and knowing that things will get better. And I remember, like, that monthly visit was always just something I always looked forward to. Like, it was like the highlight of my month, where I would tell them everything that was going on in school and the next play I was going to be in. They really did kind of become a parent figure to me, because the people I was living with in the foster care system didn't always care. They didn't always show up to things. They more fed me and made sure I was clothed and let me do my own thing. So my social worker and adoption worker were really the only people who listened and talked me through what was happening and made sure I understood and that I was comfortable.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with John about my last social worker and my adoption worker. They really help support and be a voice for me, being that my social worker before my last social worker, she thought it was a terrible idea for me to want to find an adoptive family at the age of 16. She thought that it was stupid and that I should plan to age out of the system. So my last social worker really fought to keep me motivated and to help me see like what I deserve. My adoption worker, she was awesome. She traveled from the cities to Moorhead, which is where I was at the time, just to see me. And she really listened to what I wanted, and she saw me as who I was and not that kid in the case file, you know, which was super important to me. But also, it was like music and nature kept me going, and just the thought of like a future knowing of what I deserve, and to be able to help others find their voices in the future as well. That's what kept me going.
I would have to agree with that. Like, I was lucky for both of my social workers that I had while I was in the system to be such just good and honest people and care and listen. And just, like Armando said, see me as a person and not as a file that had everything that I've ever done wrong in my life put in it. So I think that just social workers who are honest and true and listen, and family members that you can keep in contact with, are just such a big support for youth in the system.
For sure. And for the youth that are possibly listening, like, word of advice, know your worth. Find your voice, use it, advocate for yourself and others. Like, just find that hope in every situation and know your rights, fight for your rights, and fight for your worth of having an adoptive family.
Because you are worth it, you are strong, and anyone who puts you down has no idea what it is like. So trust me, it gets better. It doesn't seem like it, and it sometimes is really hard, but it does. It does get better.
Oh, thank you both for those really important like nuggets and words of wisdom, I think on both sides, and for both youth who are still living and breathing this experience, and those supportive adults that we know from experience, that research tells us, everything shows us, like, supportive adults are so essential for all youth, and especially youth experiencing foster care and who have been in many ways disconnected from their families, sometimes their communities, and so much more. And I wonder if you all, so in thinking of, connection looks very different for all of us right now. And so as we're talking about social workers who are doing really great social work and engaging and in supporting youth, and your own experiences and what that's looked like and felt like, I don't know if you have additional thoughts on kind of in life in a pandemic, how can those frontline professionals or even those caregivers, those foster parents and resource parents or advocates, serving in our community agencies, like, if you have ideas or thoughts on just like how to continue to support and engage with and for youth right now.
For me, my biggest thing that I always think is helpful is listen. Talk to them. Don't think that they're, miserable, but don't also think that they're fine. Have open conversations with them. And do stuff together. Like, if you're a foster parent, don't just treat this pandemic as, we're all in the house together, we eat together, and we spend some time together. But, like, set up at least like once a week or something of something that you all agree that you want to do to build that bond stronger, and also it's a good time to talk about what they're thinking and how they're feeling.
Yeah, just like John said, open communication, having an open mind, definitely like privacy as well. Like, we all need time for ourselves and time to reflect, and it's a crazy time in a crazy world. But also just reach out, like what we're doing here. Listen to the youth, help find groups like MyVoice or Foster Club or Youth in Action, where foster youth can come together and connect and have a mutual understanding of how crazy and vulnerable it is to be in the system, especially during this time.
Yeah. And, and summer is upon us. Well, wait, is it officially summer yet? No. It's close. It feels like it's hot right now. It's so close, and it is hot, and I love it. I'm not complaining. But in thinking, I've been having many conversations, whether it's with, friends and family who are parents and caregivers, or, in kind of more work-related conversations around just thinking of our kids and our youth and how summer is going to look so different for all of us. Lots of activities are canceled, pools are closed, parks are closed. Just so much of what we know as summer in Minnesota, when we fight through those cold winter months. And so summer can be everything to us. And so I don't know, and thinking of our youth who are going to be navigating summer very differently, I don't know if you both would want to share, if you even know. I know like life is like day by day right now, but if you have thought at all, like how are you going to navigate summer, or if you have ideas or like resources you want to share for youth who may be listening, or adults supporting youth. And that could be like the small things. I don't know, like if it's music or getting outside, like you said, nature. But yeah, if you have any thoughts of like, okay, how you're thinking of and approaching going into this warmer weather and staying safe.
I agree that like the summer is going to be so crazy, because for me, swimming and being in water and like being outside like that is such a way that I realize it is summer, and I decompress in the summer and I clear my head in the summer. So I think if you're like me and you like being in the water, or you like being outside in summer, still go outside, go on walks. You don't have to go on walks with people, go out on your own, bring a notebook, find a place that you like, and just sit down and write down all the good and the nastiness and the bad that you're feeling. And then, walk back. I think that is one of the easiest way to navigate through the summer of not being able to see friends and not being able to see family members who are older, and also, the pools and the parks and all that type of stuff being shut down.
Right. And even in a group home setting, like it can be hard to have access to go outside. So definitely going back to professionals, listening to youth and trying to make accommodations for them during this time. It's really important. Just take time for yourself. I know for me personally, I ordered a bunch of books that I'll read outside of college. So I'm excited for that. Also, I've been spending a lot of time with my cat. My cat helps me through a lot, She can't talk much, but she's a great listener. And just Zooming with family and friends. It keeps me connected. It feels, even though we're not there in front of each other, we can at least see and still, in a way, interact.
Is there anything else, that we haven't talked about that you want to share, or that you want listeners to know and be thinking about?
For me, if you're a youth and you feel unsafe and something bad is happening in your home, do not be afraid of what will happen if you speak out, because your social workers, your adoption workers, anyone who is assigned to you to help you are there to protect you. That is their job, and they will get you out, and they will find you a place where you are safe and where you are loved and where you are cared for. So do not feel bad for speaking out if something bad is happening.
And I'd like to talk about communication with biological family. It is important, but it's also important to remember your safety and your worth. Like like John said, if there's anything bad happening in your foster homes, or even if you, in your respite homes or your group homes, like, don't be afraid. Take the chance that I did, and your life will be so much better in the end because of the courage that you have. And when it comes to your biological families, just be safe, create those boundaries, and it's up to you with how you want that to go. And I encourage professionals to help guide you through that process and to support them and encourage them to create those healthy connections.
All right, well, thank you, Armanda and John. I really appreciate you both taking time to chat with me and to really speak with our listeners and share with them some really important truths and sharing your own wisdom and your experience in advocating for yourselves and for other youth. And I just really appreciate your time, and I hope you both stay well and find ways to continue to stay connected and take care this summer.
Well, thank you for having us. I mean, it was actually quite a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for listening and letting us share our truths, and hopefully others out there will come and join us with our MyVoice meetings and meet new people.
This podcast was brought to you by the Center for Advanced Studies in Child Welfare. This podcast was produced by Karina Berry. Our series editors were Denise Cooper and Cliff Dahlberg. Music was composed by Big Cats. And this podcast was supported in part by a grant from the Minnesota Department of Human Services Children and Family Services Division. For more information, please visit the CASHU website at cascw.umn.edu. Thank you for listening, and stay well, everyone.